Good morning and welcome to the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Just a really quick housekeeping here. For those of us that are new to the chambers, you can unmute your mic just by hitting the big button that says mic, or you can turn it off by hitting the same thing. The county has also asked us that there be no food or drinks in the chamber. We did bring coffee for you that you can enjoy in the room to my left. Okay, Commissioner Hurst, Commission Alternate Hurst.
Present.
Commission Alternate Schifrin.
Here.
Commissioner DeSerpa. Commissioner Koenig.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Present.
Commissioner Downey.
Here.
Commissioner Leonor. Here. Commissioner Kalantari Johnson. Here. Commissioner Caltrans ex officio Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Jensen. Here. Commissioner Keeley.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
And Commissioner Montesino.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And with that, any additions or deletions to the consent and regular agenda?
We posted to our website handouts for items 6, 14, 17, and 18.
Thank you for that. And now we're going to go on to oral communication. Any communication addressing the commission?
Unified Corridor Investment Study and the Santa Cruz-Watsonville Multimodal Corridor Program call for a zero-emission passenger rail project. Your own studies show that it will take upgrades to existing bridges to have passenger trains, especially in Capitola. So why are you requiring Caltrans to replace the 2 bridges in Aptos during phase 3 of the highway widening with heavy freight ones? That needs to be changed. Why are you fighting over a few parking spots in Aptos when you need a parking garage to handle the estimated 100 daily passengers for the train? What are you going to do about La Selva and Capitola, where you also need parking garages? Why were parking garages left out of your budget? Perhaps the cost would have killed the project in the first place. County supervisors have a mandate to you that this project is for passenger service, not heavy freight, and that parking garages need to be added to your estimates. And we only have, I think, 1 here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Fred Geiger, Santa Cruz. Here we are again. Time goes by, the dollars trickle. We're talking tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm here to ask you to take a look at alternatives. There's very many questions about both the PRT and the rail reports that come up with some apparently inaccurate figures. The rail numbers seem to be way off when compared to other similar projects. The PRT had questions like how many people per car fit. So they demoted PRT, and that's one of many examples I could give you if I had more than 20 seconds. You need to spend a small fraction of the money that you're spending on major projects to take a look at alternatives. The 2 studies you had on the rail and the PRT alternative are very flawed, and I'd be glad to talk about it more, but I have to say goodbye.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Brett Garrett from Santa Cruz, and I agree with Fred's comments just now. It seems like there's been a lot of focus on maybe the wrong problem, using the rail corridor instead of providing the best transportation, which doesn't need to be on the rail corridor. Anyway, I have some following comments from Mike Saint, who cannot be here today, but I agree with his comments as follows. We need to give personal rapid transit a chance. When we even mention PRT, people say it hasn't been tried. It hasn't been a tried and proven mass transit system. But let's look at some numbers from the Metro bus system, which began service in 1968. Peak ridership was in 2001 with 8 million passengers. After 57 years, last year it had 5.3 million passengers, a 32% decline over 24 years. So that's a red flag and maybe a wake-up call that that we should also look at alternatives such as PRT to help improve transportation. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers? Public comment? Seeing none, anybody over Zoom?
We do not have any speakers online.
All right, with that, I'm going to close that portion of the meeting and go on to consent. But before I go to the consent agenda, I want to acknowledge Commissioners DeSerpa being here and Commissioner Calatori Johnson, so thank you. And with that, on the consent agenda, anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll put out for the public the consent items on the agenda.
Good morning, Chair Montesino and Commissioners. Matt Farrell, speaking for Friends of the Rail and Trail. We are supportive of the recommendation for a seismic analysis of the Capitola Trestle, but we want to reiterate our support is conditioned on preservation of the rail as part of any replacement project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse my ignorance, but I thought I had to wait till 6 actually came up to speak, but he spoke on it. So I have a question for you on the Capitola agreement. Is it for light passenger or is it for heavy freight? Because that bridge can't handle heavy freight. And so I would like someone to say, what is the plan for that Capitola memo of understanding of what they're going to build there?
Yeah, this is not a time for an answering question and answer, but someone will give you an answer.
So come back when 6 comes up?
No, this is already on 6. But
Okay.
This is not a question and answer portion of it. Any other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think it's okay to answer the question. The staff report indicates that the Capitola study is going to be for trail on the rail line. It's not for either freight or passenger rail, as I understand it. Staff can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else is in chambers? Seeing none, anybody over Zoom?
Yes. Brian Peoples?
Hi, this is Brian Peoples with Trail Now. We absolutely support item number 6, moving forward with the seismic analysis and upgrades for the Capitola Trestle. Thank you.
That was your last speaker.
Thank you. With that, I'm bringing it back for the Commissioner's action or direction.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
So it's been moved in second. We don't have to do a roll call because everybody's here. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any noes? Seeing none. Any abstentions? None. Consent agenda passes. So now we're going to move on to the regular agenda, Commissioner's report. Any commissioners? Commissioner Downing?
Good morning, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, great. So last week, the Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District announced our CEO, Corey Aldridge, was appointed to the California Transit Association's new transit funding task force, which will advise association staff on priorities for upcoming negotiations concerning greenhouse gas reduction fund expenditures. And this includes the appropriation of remaining legislative discretionary funding and the potential revision of investment priorities outlined in Senate Bill 840. The task force also will identify and evaluate potential new state revenue sources and help guide the association's efforts to secure additional funding during the 27-2028 legislative session. Having Central Coast representation on this task force gives us a voice in state funding decisions that could affect how Metro serves our residents who rely on us every day. Metro also announced Chief Planning and Innovation Officer John Urgo has been selected to serve on the California Transit Association's Advisory Committee, and that provides strategic input and technical guidance for the implementation of key California Department of Transportation policies. These include California Caltrans district plans, director's policy, and future updates. Committee members coordinate with multiple Caltrans divisions, partner agencies, and transit advocates from across California. His appointment ensures Metro will have a strong voice in statewide policy decisions, so congratulations to both of them. Planning for the second annual Week Without Driving, held this year from October 1st through 8th, is underway, with an emphasis this year on sharing the stories of non-drivers. Almost 1/3 of our local population are disabled who cannot drive, those who can't afford a vehicle or gas, those who are too young to drive or choose not to drive, and our friends and family members who have aged out of driving. The decisions we make affect their freedom to move in our community. And this week highlights their challenges, so what we fund, plan, and build prioritizes their safety. Last year, many of our commissioners and other elected officials participated by getting out of your cars, taking the bus, riding your bikes, and walking during the week. Thank you, Shepard. And expect to hear more soon about what you can do this year. Go Santa Cruz County will again host the Week Without Driving contest, where every trip logged during the week will be entered to win prizes from local businesses. So please check your calendars now and mark them to attend our countywide event, which is planned for Friday, October 2nd, from 4 to 7 at the Capitola Mall near the Metro Transit Center. Our focus this year will be on family fun activities, and events will include local pedestrian safety agencies and advocates, and opportunities to try out bikes, learn to ride the bus, and about the importance of protecting non-drivers, who are all of us when we step out of our car. The County Department of Development and Infrastructure, the Community Traffic Safety Coalition, Santa Cruz Metro, Cruising Together Santa Cruz County, and this commission are this year's hosts. So please contact us for more information. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Any other commissioners? Just want to acknowledge our ribbon cutting this week, and also want to congratulate, on naming the Panther Yellow Beach parking lot to our commissioner that's been a long-time commissioner, Andy Schiffrin. So I want to thank you for all your service, your dedicated service, so many years in guiding our community and our transportation, needs over all these years. So I want to acknowledge you. I also want to take this opportunity to appoint the ad hoc committee for commissions to develop a review response for the grand jury report. And they will be, I got a list. Commissioner Manu, Commissioner De Serpa, Commissioner Keeley, myself, and Commissioner Jerry, will be, so keep up for an email with some potential dates to meet, because this is gonna be hard work. So with that, I'm gonna go on to the director's report. We usually bypass public comment, but I will allow it. Go ahead.
We need a public comment on commissioner reports, right?
Do what's right, and one of the things they mentioned was public input. Well, other than giving us longer time at the microphone, I think this commission should, as well as the board members, or even instead of the board members, you're basically investigating yourself, which doesn't, inspire a lot of public confidence when the RTC investigates what's wrong with the RTC. So I would suggest a different method of going about this response, which did, according to the grand jury's recommendations on many issues, include the public and not just the commission members. So I would like you to consider that and think about, the big picture here. How does this look to the public? How effective is it going to be with a limited input from only the members that are on the board? So I think that's a consideration that's necessary. Thank you for extending public comment, whether we should have been here or not. That's good PR right there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Brett Garrett, and I agree with Fred's comments just now. I saw in the agenda that there would be a committee, and it looked kind of like the emphasis might be on damage control, possibly in the form of rebuttals to the grand jury report. I'm not sure about that, but I just want to recommend that the emphasis should be a transparent process to implement recommendations and also improve processes going forward. One possibility would be to set up a community advisory committee that could provide public transportation experts, low-income representation, transportation advocates, and so forth. It could be similar to the Community Advisory Council of Central Coast Community Energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Montecito and Commissioners. Matt Farrell speaking for Friends of the Rail and Trail. Friends of the Rail and Trail supports recommendation 1 from the grand jury regarding the development of a capital project advancement framework for future capital projects. The assessment used, in our opinion, between different projects being managed by the commission is uneven and not equal. And we urge you to use a comprehensive format for advancing capital projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, having observed grand jury reports for better part of 4 decades at various public agencies, I think the civil grand jury process is quite helpful in the sense of folks who are volunteers who look into the operations of public agencies, might be a school district, might be our entity, might be a county, might be whatever it is. And those volunteer citizens take their work very seriously. I have found over the years that those reports are somewhat uneven, but under the law, we are required as a public agency to respond. It is outlined in the law how that works. This is not something where we are investigating ourselves, as has been said here. They have already looked. This is a civil grand jury. This is not a criminal grand jury, this is a civil grand jury. And they look at the operations of government, and those operations that they raise questions about are the operations that we're required under law to respond to. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate, I think, being appointed to this body to help develop our public response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for that response. Anybody over Zoom?
We do have a speaker, Brian Peoples.
Hi, this is Brian Peoples from Trail Now. We submitted a response, and at the essentially what we're asking for is the RTC to recognize their failures and be accountable. And we specifically see the 2 decades worth of time spent on this rail plan as one of the driving problems with this organization. You're ran by a political machine rather than smart transportation solutions. We also advocate not to include those commissioners on this board who have been advocating for rail for decades and continue to push for rail, even though it's not feasible in any way. So we hope that you don't have any commissioners that were rail advocates, and we expect you to be accountable and come up with real solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to close that up and go on to the director's report.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. I have a short director's report today. You can go to the next slide. On Tuesday, we hosted a ribbon cutting ceremony and celebration for the new paved parking lot and restroom facilities at Panther Yellow Bank Beach. About 50 people came out to celebrate this exciting milestone in the North Coast Rail Trail project, including some of you commissioners, city and county elected officials, community leaders, and community members. Representatives from the offices of Senator John Laird and Assemblymember Gail Pellerin also attended and presented the RTC with a California Legislature Certificate of Recognition. The new parking lot and restroom facilities provide greatly improved access to the beach and surrounding coastal areas for visitors traveling along Highway 1. By opening the parking lot and restrooms ahead of the full North Coast Rail Trail completion, the RTC aims to enhance public access and convenience while progress continues on the larger trail system. The event also included a special presentation to Commission alternate member Andy Schifrin in recognition of his 50-plus years of service to the Commission. The Panther Beach parking lot was dedicated to him. Congratulations, Commissioner Schifrin, and thank you for your many years of dedicated service to the RTC. Next slide, please. I have a quick construction update on the North Coast Rail Trail, which the construction is continuing. These new amenities mark a key milestone in the ongoing construction of the 7.5-mile North Coast Rail Trail, with construction currently focused on the north end of the project near Davenport, including construction of the trail and construction of another parking lot and restroom facility in Davenport. The project is expected to be completed before the end of the calendar year, and the trail is not currently open to the public, but we look forward to opening it later this year for the community to enjoy. Next slide, please. Construction on the Highway 1 Auxiliary Lane, Bus on Shoulder, and Mar Vista overcrossing project is also continuing to progress nicely. As part of the construction work, the southbound Highway 1 off-ramp at Bay Avenue was closed on Sunday and is expected to remain closed for approximately 4 months as crews reconstruct the ramp as part of the Bus on Shoulder facility. Detours are in place and drivers should plan accordingly if they plan to travel throughout this area. Other work on the project includes rebuilding the Park Avenue southbound on-ramp, widening work on the shoulders to prepare for the auxiliary lanes and drainage improvements, and work on the Mar Vista overcrossing. Construction of the deck of the bicycle pedestrian overcrossing is complete, and crews are now working on finishing the pedestrian railing. Ongoing construction updates can be found on the RTC website, and we suggest that folks sign up for our e-news as well. Next slide. The RTC was recently awarded a Caltrans Planning for Sustainable Communities grant to continue climate resiliency planning work along the branch line at 2 additional locations in South County, which included an amendment to the work program and budget as part of a consent item that was approved just now. This planning study aims to develop climate resilient concepts threatened by climate hazards along the southern portion of the Santa Cruz Branch Rail Line, including Galligan Slough and the Pajaro River floodplain, and farmland areas south of the Pajaro River. This planning effort expands on the climate resilience work underway as part of the climate resiliency study for the branch line. Next slide. We have some upcoming community outreach. Staff from the RTC and the Resource Conservation District are hosting a community workshop on Thursday, August 27th at 6 p.m. at the Seymour Marine Discovery Center. And this outreach is about our San Vicente and Waddell Coastal Resilience Planning Study. The planning study focuses on climate adaptation along Highway 1 and the branch line near Davenport and Big Basin State Park. These transportation corridors are facing growing risks from sea level rise, severe storms, and coastal flooding. The goal of the planning study is to develop concepts that will protect this critical infrastructure while restoring nearby marsh habitats. More information on the project and upcoming outreach can be found on the RTC website. And that concludes my director's report.
Thank you. Any commissioners' questions, comments? Commissioner Hurst.
Thank you very much, Director. I really appreciate the focus on South County and the challenges that exist and the progress that can be made. And so thank you very much for that focus. And in addition, you know, the Highway 1 construction, I did go through that this morning on my 14-mile, 1-hour trip up here. And it certainly does improve the circumstances from what it was previously. There's still a lot of improvements to go, but I say thank you very much to the entire commission for all the Highway 1 improvements that are hopefully going to finally be finished someday, and that we can actually get moving, and it won't take an hour to go 14 miles. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going back to public. Public like to weigh in the commissioners' report. Seeing none here. Anybody over Zoom?
Jack Brown.
Hey, good morning, commissioners. I just wanted to also bring up, which I don't think was included in the commissioner's report, but has been very important for us bike riders, is the pilot of the new delineators on Soquel Drive. There are two different types that are being done, one on the westbound, one on the eastbound side. Really liking the ones on the eastbound. They're more like what's on water, but very sturdy, much better than what we've had in the past, and hopefully we continue getting good results from this, and we can redo the delineators along the roadway, and hopefully treat the Soquel corridor as the jewel of our bike infrastructure until the coastal corridor is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. I think someone in the public like to weigh in chambers.
And I just wanted to really thank you, Director, and also the Commissioners for continue supporting our South County and continue the improvements, but it's very important for our rail and continue those improvements. And hopefully all commissioners can be able to continue to support that, because it's important for the city of Watsonville and South County. So I thank you for that support. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to close up a portion of the meeting and move on to the Caltrans report.
Good morning. I'd like to focus on two things this morning. First, you heard about the sustainable planning grants that our SCCRTC received. Caltrans is gearing up for next fiscal year. So on the 19th of August, we will have our annual meeting, and we'll go through what that process is and provide directions and guidance accordingly. The second part to this, everybody's well aware Caltrans is busy out there. I wanted to focus on Santa Cruz 9, and if you could bring that up. Yeah. Thank you. Today was first day of school for a lot of kids across the county and across the state. There are a lot of people out there. There's a lot of moving cars, moving bikes, moving pedestrians. Pay attention, be advised. They're out there, and we would like to get everybody safely to and from wherever they are going. But I wanted to focus on this because this has been several years in the making. There will be complaints. We are well aware of what's going on, and we are watching, monitoring, and adjusting. We have Cruz out there. We have CHP out in force, looking, trying to see where issues are and how we can adjust accordingly. You are going to hear complaints. The reality is you heard an hour for 14 miles. Highway 9 is a 2-lane road, and there are a lot more people out there trying to get through that in the summertime than it probably will ever be able to handle. It takes us years to get to this point, but we are going to be building for several years. And I think this visual right here, which is construction of 9 projects over the next 5 years in this corridor, just highlights how much effort and time and impact we will have to the constituents. When we get done, it's going to be great, but it's going to be a little messy getting to that point. And so I thought it would be important to highlight this. It's on our website. We are trying to communicate it out in every way we know how, but we're doing our best. We are trying to be as least impactful as possible while getting as much done so that we make it better for people in the future. Whether it's a new sidewalk near the high school, whether it's new pavement, guardrail, striping, whatnot. There's just a lot going on there. So, and then with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions? Commissioner Jensen?
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if we could get an update on the Park Avenue on-ramp construction schedule, where we are with that at the present time, with the closure of the Bay Avenue Porter exit. Obviously, traffic's really backed up, and we just like to be transparent to the community to see if we have an update on those with the Park Avenue opening. And then my follow-up question to that is the on-ramp northbound to Bay Avenue onto Highway 1. I think that'll be scheduled for some closures, and if we have any dates around what that proposed construction might look like.
Yes, our Director of Capital Projects, Amina Bouamara, is ready to answer that question. If you could please step aside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for your question. And the Park Avenue southbound on-ramp has been closed for a little while, and it'll continue to be closed until the end of September. That's the current schedule for it. There's a lot of work there. The whole on-ramp was basically reconstructed. They're gearing up now for getting the aggregate bays and paving and then striping and all that. So it'll take until the end of September. So yeah, we apologize for the inconvenience, but that's how the schedule is for right now. And I think your second question was about Bay Porter?
Yeah, Bay Porter, the northbound on-ramp.
So the Bay Porter northbound on and off ramp will have some work. Initially, the construction team, Caltrans and us were thinking that while the southbound off ramp is closed for about 4 months since last Sunday, as our director has mentioned, we thought that we could align that work. It's not as long as the 4 months needed for the southbound off-ramp, so we thought it's about a month each for each of these, the northbound on-ramp and off-ramp. So we thought we could do it at the same time to utilize, construction going on, but at the same, but that thinking was also we want to evaluate the impact of closing the southbound off-ramp and see if that makes sense to, within that 4 months, to start closing one of these other ramps. And we thought, and it turned out that it's not really very public convenience that we do that. So we have held back, and it's not gonna affect the schedule. We're gonna do the on and off ramp on the northbound after we open the southbound off ramp. So that's realizing that we wanna try and make this as better for the public as possible. It is still inconvenient closing ramps, but that's what we have to do.
All right, thank you for that. I appreciate your flexibility in looking at that. Thanks.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I want to start off by thanking our partners at Caltrans, and maybe want to talk a little bit more about these Highway 9 improvements for the benefit of the public. First of all, congratulations to all the children who are starting school this morning. I know we have thousands of kids who are now in their classrooms, including my own, and so it's a really important day. And in preparation for this, my office has been receiving a number of phone calls about residents who are concerned about the various construction projects along Highway 9. I mean, not just phone calls. I can't walk through town without people talking about this. And I really want to extend my gratitude to Caltrans and everyone on your team who has been in close contact with my office about potential improvements and ways that we can help to make this couple of weeks a little bit easier for folks. So for example, in response to some initial feedback that we got, Caltrans was willing to adjust the location of some temporary lane barricades to reduce a bottleneck that was happening around Highway 9 and Graham Hill. We've also worked with Caltrans to adjust the timing of the traffic signals at the main lights and to continue to monitor that and make those adjustments as we see the traffic patterns go back to their normal routines during the holiday or during the start of school. We have also agreed with you to kind of slow down non-urgent work during this kind of 2-week period when families are adjusting to their new routines. And I want to recognize that that comes with cost. There's only a short window of good weather when projects can happen. So when we ask for a delay to non-urgent work, it does push things out. Similar to the county public works, they've been willing to delay some of the non-urgent projects during this time. So I appreciate the county public works. And I also know that you're working with the CHP, the sheriff's office, and other partners just to communicate and try to be present during this time. And, you know, these projects, like you shared, they're a long time coming. Our residents have asked for these improvements for years, and there are real safety implications. For example, the Felton Safety Improvement Project to create a sidewalk between the intersection and the school it's a priority to me, it's a priority to many families, and it does come with some congestion while we're building it, but families and children are going to be a lot safer when this project is done. So I really appreciate the public's patience during this time and their continued communication. My office sent out a newsletter about these safety improvements and about traffic on August 4th, and that's available on my county website, the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, and we'll continue to provide updates. But my last question is, if residents want updates from Caltrans, how might they be able to access that from you?
We have a website. We have multiple spots where you can find this information out. We have a public information office that they can contact as well. And I think we have a Facebook or something like that, but I don't do Facebook, so. But there are multiple ways to contact us. And if you just Google Caltrans, you're gonna find us, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the patience of the residents, and I appreciate your work to bring these safety improvements to Highway 9.
Yeah, we are listening. We try to make as many adjustments as we can while continuing to move forward. And this shows it all. It's going to be an iterative process over the next several years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Koenig.
Thank you, Chair. I want to return to the subject of the Bay Porter off-ramp on Highway 1. Pretty impactful closure. Is really the primary exit to get to Capitola Village and Soquel Village. I'm just curious what kind of outreach was done before the closure. I mean, I know that I saw 1 or 2 comments in through the RTC's channels, and so I guess the broader question is, what is the protocol for outreach from either RTC or Caltrans before a major closure like this, and then also why this particular time frame was selected, you know, really the busiest tourist season for this part of our county, which really depends on tourism.
Sure. So unfortunately, you know, the busy season in Santa Cruz, the summertime is also the peak season for construction, because some of these major improvements, such as bridges or retaining walls, major structures, cannot be done in the wintertime. They have to be done when the weather's nice, where they can complete the work efficiently and as quickly as possible so that it limits the amount of disruption to the public. So that's just the unfortunate truth about how public construction projects work. In terms of the outreach that our agency has done, so we partner with Caltrans, obviously, to do a significant amount of outreach for the overall project, and as well as any, you know, impactful closures that we are proposing. So on a normal basis, we put out regular updates through our channels, and that includes an e-news. We have social media. Our outreach team is really on top of it, and we work with Caltrans, similar to the updates on Highway 9. The Public Information Office partners with our staff to put the information out through their channels as well. In addition to that, we have changeable message signs that we put out prior to closures just for those who we missed. We also do radio interviews every so often. Like, we try very hard to get the word out. And, you know, we've been talking about this project for, I don't know, 6 years now. And we've had various touch points of outreach throughout the project development. And we invite those who are interested in hearing more to subscribe to our e-news and to follow our, you know, you could sign up specifically to receive Highway 1 news or Highway 9 news. And so we encourage folks to sign up for those. And we just try to be as open and forthcoming with information as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to make comments for Caltrans. You know, although it wasn't highlighted, we also have a lot of projects in Watsonville on Highway 1, on Highway 152 and 129, which for the most part, yeah, people have commented, but it's mostly positive comments of improvements, especially sidewalk improvements, and you know, along those lines. So I just want to thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none? Oh.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Seppa.
Thank you. Hi, Bill. Over the past, I would say, 6 weeks or so, my office has been getting a lot of complaints about what's going on Highway 1. And the main, I think, issue that they're bringing up is that they understand the work needs to happen, but they don't ever see any workers working. And then, so I inquired on behalf of the public to Amin, and I, understood that like some of the work is going on at night, but then I'm on the highway at night, right? Because I go to a lot of different events that end very late. And again, I myself, I'm not seeing any work going on at night. So I'm wondering if somebody could just help me understand, is it like vacation season for our contractor partners? No. Because it's important. Like everybody's been very, very patient, and we just want to see work actually getting finished, yeah.
It's a very legitimate concern that you think, okay, why are all these closures and nobody's working? But I can assure you that they are working. I double check with the resident engineers and the construction team several times that there is some work that we don't see as public. For example, the work that is being going on over the last few days when the Bay Porter southbound off-ramp was closed is not really visible to everybody, because what they're doing right now is they're disconnecting the electrical work, because there's going to be some demoing of the barrier rail and part of the retaining wall and all that, so they have to disconnect the electricity. And this sometimes happens with a crew that is kind of like not really visible. They're working from under the ramp, under the bridge, and they're going to be also installing temporary poles, temporary electrical poles, but while they're doing this work. So this work wasn't visible to the public. They thought the ramp was closed for a few days, nobody's working, but there is work. And it's consequential work that you have to do this before you do this, before you do this. Very soon you're gonna see some work on like real construction work on the ramp. The other thing is about some drainage work that happens, and the drainage work that happens also is not totally visible, because it's to the side of the ramp sometimes, and adjustment of basically some culverts and things like that are not basically also visible. The last thing I want to say is that the work at night is depending also on the window that they choose to work. So it might not be for the all night long, but they choose the hours that are less impactful to the public, that they could do the work. So the work could have happened like maybe in an hour or two and it's done. So when you pass, the work was done. But again, it's, sometimes during night, it's not too busy, so it makes sense not to keep on shifting the K-rail because all of that comes with expense. So it's closed. We know it's not that impactful to the traffic at night, so they do the work and then they go. So that's what happens sometimes.
Thank you. You know, and I will say I want to express my gratitude because your team and the Caltrans team has come together at many community meetings that we've held with some of the clubs and the chambers, and I think you're coming into the Aptos Chamber soon to give
We're
another
honored to be there,
presentation.
yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and I think that really illuminates the work that's being done, how it's getting done, the cost, and the design. So I really appreciate you making the time
Our
to
pleasure.
educate the
Our pleasure,
public.
Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Fabian. Leonor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Also, I'd like to echo what Chair Montesino said about the sidewalks that are being repaired in Watsonville. I've seen it firsthand because I drive every day to drop off my son, and on Riverside, those sidewalks were horrible, so thank you for that. But one concern that I do have is that Caltrans was doing some work on a section of Main Street in Watsonville, and the pavement was repaired, but the striping was done like, I felt like it was a first grader doing striping. And really, it's horrible, and I heard it from some people in Watsonville. So I just thought I would bring it up to you, and please, you know, let's take a little bit more time to stripe our streets well, because people do get confused with those lines that are just, horrible.
I'll note, if we're working on sidewalks, guaranteed, the last thing we do is pave, and then we stripe. So that striping, I'm sure, is temporary striping. It's there just to make you aware you're in the middle of a construction zone, so you're already should have a heightened alertness. It's there for a short time before the next cut or the next patch or the next whatnot. And they'll do that continuously through the construction project until we get done. Once we pave it black, you'll see very bright, very wide stripe, and you'll know it's ours at that point.
Yeah,
So,
and I feel like the work is already completed and the lines are still there. It's a section from Freedom Boulevard to 5th Street.
I'll take that.
And then there's another striping that was done at the, not from Union Street, but where the police station's at, to Riverside on the Main Street section. And it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's something to look at. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to go out to the public.
Thank you, Bill Beecher again. Next year and the following year, Caltrans will be starting Phase 3 of the Highway 1 widening. In that, it calls for the 2 bridges that go over the highway now to be taken out. And in your website, it calls for 2 heavy freight bridges to replace them. Hello, I mean, the RTC has a report that calls for a zero-emission passenger rail project. Why are we going to spend that much extra money to put in a heavy freight bridges in Aptos? I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay for that. Now, it also says the RTC and the County Board of Supervisors haven't made it clear what the hell we're going to be doing with the rail. If you read the Sentinel, there are a gazillion number of letters that come in. Nobody knows what's going on. You guys have to make this clear that it is a zero-emission passenger rail project, not a heavy freight one. Thank you, and get your job done.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers?
Being that we have our children coming in this coming week, I have a suggestion that, you know, because we have a lot of problems in the construction, especially in the area, Freedom Boulevard, Main Street, and Green Valley. And being the concern that we have, some of the parents about it, and now that the kids are riding bicycles, electric bicycles, that's another problem that we're facing. So is any way that we can be able to have a coordination between the law enforcement, especially the first week, to be available to be able to prevent any accidents within that week. At least be able to, so parents can be able to understand, because I know Caltrans, the police department, and also it will be very helpful for the kids. So hopefully there's no fatalities in that, because of the constructions and all the construction going on. And then the parents driving all over the place, bikes all over the place. So maybe the first week we can be able to coordinate between the law enforcement and Caltrans, so we can have a safety week for the people going to school this first week. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, anybody over Zoom?
Yes, Jack Brown?
Morning, Commissioners. Jack Brown from Aptos. Just a couple things I wanted to bring up. Last month, we had a kind of unique situation with Caltrans where District 4 decided to clear out encampments and clear brush on what I call the Lexington Funnel on Highway 17 North during morning rush hour traffic, which caused a lot of pandemonium for us living in District 5. And it just felt like there was not very good communication between districts on that, if that could be looked at in the future, especially in that choke point. Second item I wanted to bring up was around the Mar Vista Bridge, which I believe the construction is mostly under Caltrans. The bike detours on McGregor are kind of like halfway done. The signs are missing for anybody that is going westbound. And then for eastbound, there's a bike detour off McGregor, but it goes down Mar Vista. It doesn't tell users when to get onto like Sea Ridge. If that can please be fixed, that's a very unsafe area. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have no other speakers.
With that, I'm going to close that portion up. So thank you for that report. And then we're going to go on to item 17, which is Coastal Rail Trail Southern Segment Project Contract Award.
Commissioner Montecito, I'll be recusing myself from that item.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Downer.
Do I get the clicker?
Yeah, she's coming right behind you.
Fantastic. Chair Montesino, commissioners, thank you. My name is Riley Gerbrandt, of your staff, Senior Transportation Engineer, and serving as project manager on the Coastal Rail Trail Southern Segments project. And I'm excited to be here before you today. This is an exciting project. We're going to be talking about the contract for the professional engineering services. Aha. We tested this before, so we know it does work. Today we're recommending authorization to authorize the executive director to negotiate a contract for professional engineering services with our recommended consultant, HDR Engineering Incorporated, for the Coastal Rail Trail Southern Segments project, for the project approval and environmental documentation phase of the project, for a contract not to exceed amount of about $4.5 million. Over the next few minutes, I'll be talking you through the project background, the scope of work, the cost and the schedule, and ending with the staff recommendation. So first, a little background. The Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission purchased the Santa Cruz Branch Rail Line in 2012, and the Coastal Rail Trail has been considered the spine of the Monterey Bay Scenic Sanctuary trail network. And more than 18 miles of that Coastal Rail Trail have either been already constructed, are in construction, or are in development phase. The Southern Segments project is the next phase of the project, and it's exciting as it brings 12 new miles of the Coastal Rail Trail, beginning in Rio Del Mar in the north, heading through the city of Watsonville, and ending in Pajaro Junction in northern Monterey County. The MBSST Network Master Plan refers to these segments as segments 13 through 20. This next slide here shows you what we're working with for this project. In the north, we are in the coastal area where we're dealing with coastal erosion, bluffs, and sensitive habitats. And then the landscape changes as we go from north to south. Moving inland, the alignment crosses bridges, drainage channels, and goes alongside active agricultural land. And when we enter the urban area of the city of Watsonville, it changes to dealing with congested right-of-way, street crossings, utilities, and the like. But as you know, the vision of this project is exciting, and it's really going to take a multidisciplinary, well-informed, competent team to execute this project. And that's why we're excited to have our team members with HDR Engineering joining us on this project. And we've got Chris O'Gara and Tyler Lors with us here today. They're serving as project manager and as project engineer on the project. And what this, once fully constructed, this project brings safe, low-stress walking and biking connections in and around the city of Watsonville, and then going north through Rio Del Mar, connecting with segment 12 in Aptos. And the project supports our county's climate goals and advances equity by bringing new active transportation infrastructure to South County, where the community has been asking for some time for new active transportation infrastructure. So what's this contract going to deliver? On this slide, you'll see that this contract is going to be providing your project scoping and developing conceptual alignments for the trail, preliminary engineering, initial right-of-way services, and then CEQA environmental review, including the technical studies, draft and final environmental document, and public outreach. Along with overall project management and coordination, that's what's before you today for this initial contract award. Future optional phases, such as final design, NEPA review, environmental right-of-way services, and construction support are not part of this initial award, but we would come forward back to the commission if and when those services are needed. So the project contract was developed and solicited in accordance with the RTC's adopted procurement policy. 2 proposals were received in response to the RFP, one from HDR Engineering, another from Mark Thomas and Company. A selection panel including staff from the RTC, the City of Watsonville, and the County of Santa Cruz evaluated the proposals and determined a ranking with HDR being the highest ranked team. To complete the scope of work, HDR's cost proposal is for a not to exceed contract amount of $4,497,545 with an initial 3-year contract term. The contract would be funded by Measure D Active Transportation category funds. And as a quick note on the fiscal side, the funding was already programmed in the RTC's 5-year Measure D plan, as well as included in the RTC's adopted budget under a placeholder allocation. Now that staff knows the exact contract amount, the budget amendment before you today simply aligns that with the anticipated contract expenditure categories. So the staff recommendation before you today is to authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute contract TP 2603 with HDR Engineering Incorporated for a not to exceed amount of $497,545 to complete the PAED phase of the Coastal Rail Trail Southern Segments project and to amend the approved fiscal year 26-27 budget accordingly. And with that, myself and the project team are here if you have any questions.
Before we get into questions, I just want to compliment you on the staff report. Like, it's really digestible, easy to go over. Commissioner questions? Comments? Commissioner Shepherd.
I know this is time for questions, so that's what I'll do, but I can't help but say that I'm really happy to see this coming forward. It's been a long time coming, and it's does indicate a real serious commitment to moving forward with the South County Trail. One question I have is the contract is for 3 years. Is that the estimated time that it's going to take to complete the tasks in the contract? Or do you have some sense of the timing of that?
Yes, it's not going to anticipate it to be the full 3 years, but we're allowing for the 3-year contract in case there's additional public outreach or things come up through project scoping that need some more time to work through. But we're anticipating more like around a 2-year, maybe slightly under, slightly more time frame.
I just want to mention, because oftentimes these stages of a project are a very rough indication of how much the project could actually cost. And oftentimes the rule of thumb in my experience is like 10%. And so I think what we're really talking about is a very significant cost for this project. And, you know, I know staff will work hard to try to find the outside funding to make that available. But I think there is going to be a need for an ongoing commitment by the commission to pursue this project and bring it to completion. My real substantive question has to do with the scope of work and the role of the commission in the process. As I read the scope of work, and my understanding of it is the consultants will analyze up to 4 potential alignments initially. And then from that, there'll be a decision as to what is the preferred alternative. And that preferred alternative, which is a CEQA term, is like the preferred alternative to be looked at in the CEQA document. In the past, with some of the other segments, the commission has approved more than one preferred alternative. We've had 2 preferred alternatives given the concerns in the community. What isn't clear in the scope of work is who gets to decide that. And my expectation is, and I think it should be made clear, that the commission should make the decision as to the one or more preferred alternatives. All the alternatives will be looked at as alternatives, but the really detailed analysis, if there's only one preferred alternative, will be with that alternative. So it's a very significant decision, and I think it's one that the commission should make. The contract isn't clear about that, so I guess I'll start out with my question is, what's your intention, what's the staff's intention as to how that decision will be made?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and thank you, Commissioner Alternate Schifrin. Normally in a project, you know, it depends on the project and the level of interest that the governing body has in the project. So for some projects, the project development team will do the work. You know, normally we go out and we go to the community after the project team's defined, you know, what are we trying to achieve with this project? Go to the community and we then are doing our scoping. And then, you know, it might be 10, you know, initial concepts that people are throwing out there. You know, they're going to be, the community is going to be bringing forward ideas. And so that, you know, gets refined over time, and the aim is to bring, you know, the preferred alternative at the end of that scoping phase. Depending on the commission's direction, staff can, you know, the commission can make the decision on what the preferred alternative is. Or in some of their projects, the project development team would recommend a preferred alternative.
So it's kind of undefined now, but it is an option for the commission to review the staff recommendation on a preferred alternative and make the final decision.
Yes. And if Sarah,
We could take that direction. This project, you know, oftentimes you have projects that are a little more straightforward, that the, you know, preferred alternatives pretty, you know, a little more obvious. In this case, we have multiple alignments. We have San Andreas Road, we have the branch line, we have, you know, Beach Street and Beach Road involved. And so because of that, I think it's probably appropriate to bring something back to the commission in the future before proceeding with circulation of the draft environmental document, because that's where the preferred alternative would be identified.
Thank
So
you.
we could take that direction. Thanks.
Thank Commissioner Jensen, then Commissioner Hurst.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I was wondering if you could comment on, maybe the lack of interest in turning in proposals since we only had two. Is there a reason behind that, do you think? Just looking for some comments.
You know, obviously I don't know specifically, but there are, we always cast as wide a net as we can. We on the backside, you know, we communicate with partners that we worked with before and make sure that we advertise the RFPs as widely as we can. The firms that we got proposals from have been, you know, very engaged with this process and these particular projects. So while I can't say with, you know, certainty why we only received two, I know that the two that we did receive proposals from have been very tracking this opportunity very closely. So it's possible that maybe that's the reason why we just got the two.
Okay, perfect. And my other comments just follow up to, I think, Andy's comments. As I read through the grand jury, you know, report and stuff, there's a couple of items that stuck out to me that I think we should maybe use as a guiding direction as we move forward. And I just wanted to go over and just read both those out loud and then just make sure that they could be like a check and balance for us. It says, you know, one was key policy choices were not adequately grounded in realistic assessment for the corridor physical constraints, engineering requirements, and legal limitations and fiscal costs. And the second one says, as a result of the Regional Transportation Committee and the public having spent years debating options, in some cases that were not viable given financial and engineering realities, you know, with these type of new approach and stuff, are we going to be able to make sure that those are two forefront questions that we're going to be able to evaluate at this time going to this type of contract?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think we just really need to focus on moving forward in a, you know, maybe a different direction and having the correct information in front of us so we can make decisions and move this project forward, wherever that direction is. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Hurst.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm glad to see the focus on equity for South County here, and I know that there's, it's good to have some choices too. And I'm not sure how those choices will sort themselves out or what the input will be about that, but my question is, how are you going to work with the city of Watsonville and their existing downtown-specific plan and where the trail intersects with the urbanized environment? How is that going to coordinate with the existing plans that the city of Watsonville may have?
It's great. Our RTC staff are coordinating with the city of Watsonville staff very closely. You know, for some recent grant applications, for instance, our two staff got together and discussed the different visions that the city of Watsonville staff have and what they're pursuing, looking how the RTC can support the city staff and align with the city staff. And as this project continues forward, we're going to have the city staff on the PDT. They're going to be actively involved with us in making decisions and looking at information. So active coordination, being in close discussions and is how we're going to approach this project.
Exactly what I wanted to hear, and I hope it'll be real and real communication will take place. You know, how the trail gets into Watsonville is important too. There's a couple of different alternatives that, you know, one of them being through the Harkins Slough, the existing rail line through there and such. You know, I was fortunate enough to ride the demonstration trains through the slough, and it's just a magnificent view, and it certainly be a huge tourist attraction to roll through, ride through, walk through. But, you know, there's also the coastal alignment on San Andreas that would be extremely scenic as well. And so, and I'm sure there's some other choices as well. So I'm really glad to hear that there'll be close dialogue and planners planning together on this. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Scene. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, good morning, Riley. I would like to echo the comments regarding the staff report. Thank you for that excellent information. It makes it very digestible for us and easy to make decisions on. My questions are framed around there's some legitimate concerns out there that have been raised in the community, and then there's some noise in the ether too. And so my intent here is just to take those on head on and get the information out there. This project as it stands now, does it presuppose any outcome?
No.
Thank you. And would this project be applicable and necessary regardless of what direction we go and whatever decision we make in terms of trail alignment, ultimate, interim, any of these?
So part of what our project will do is identify what is the need. You know, what do we, there's a project, but it's got to deliver some sort of need. So the first step is what is that need, and then how is the project going to deliver that? So that's one of our first steps that we're going to do.
Great, thank you. That addresses those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, seeing another commissioner's questions, I'm going to go out to the public. Would the public like to weigh in this item at the agenda?
Thank you.
Please step forward. Thanks. Right.
Good morning, Brett Garrett again. The agenda says Exhibit B will be posted by July 31st. I have not been able to find Exhibit B. But my main comment is kind of harking back to the grand jury recommendation R3, urges to evaluate options including interim, hybrid, and ultimate trail configurations for segment 13 to 20. And I do see some of that happening in this, but it means we should do some thorough engineering work and cost analysis before deciding whether it's an interim trail or an ultimate trail or whatever. What I see in the attachment is that the preliminary engineering is to take place following identification of the preferred alignment alternative, which means that the preferred alternative is decided before realistic pricing is determined. And I don't understand that. I'm very concerned about it. Thank you.
Chair Montesino and Commissioners, Matt Farrell for Friends of the Rail and Trail. We support design alternatives which do not remove the rail line. And we especially support proposed segment 17B alternative between Buena Vista and San Andreas and Pájaro Station. This alternative was suggested by and has the support of Watsonville leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, anybody in Overton?
Jack Brown.
Good morning, Commissioners. I support moving forward with this planning effort. I ask the scope not presume rail with trail is the preferred long-term outcome. It sounds like you're going that direction, but please give rail with trail, interim trail, and permanent trail through rail banking equal consideration through the environmental process. I also urge the Commission to require early order of magnitude cost estimates for each alternative. One lesson from Zeppert is that meaningful cost information came too late in the process. Early cost estimates, along with realistic funding strategy, will help the public understand whether additional local taxes or long-term financial commitments may be required. Finally, whenever feasible, please keep the trail within the rail corridor. Diverting trail users onto roadways should only occur when absolutely necessary and be supported by a transparent engineering and safety analysis. Lastly, I also want to bring up was for true equity, let's start the trail in Watsonville and work our way north. Let's give them something that they'll love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Peoples.
Hi, this is Brian Peoples with Trail Now. We support moving forward with the engineering development plans. However, we absolutely recommend the preferred trail be the interim trail. And it's simple. It's simple to understand. The public wants you to spend our money effectively. That's why you had a grand jury report. Also, the results of the elections of Tony Nunez being elected 4th District shows the public is tired of the ongoing wasted time on the ultimate trail and the train. It is absolutely your responsibility to act as though it's your money. Pretend like the money you're spending is your money. And it's fairly simple to understand where the most cost-effective approach is. So please don't waste our time with more studies for an ultimate trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have no other speakers.
With that, I'm going to close it up and bring it for Commissioner's direction. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, just to start the discussion, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation with the additional direction that the preferred alternative return to the commission for its selection. And then I'd like to speak to that if I could. Really, in a way, the public testimony raised a question that I'd like to ask staff about in terms of what kind of work is going to be done to get to the preferred alternative. The reference has been made a few times to the grand jury report. And as I read the grand jury report, and we tend to read it in the way we want to read it, the grand jury report, we did raise significant concerns about the way the rail studies have been carried out. But it did kind of indicate that the trail study had really looked at the kind of engineering costs that were known at the time before the grants were applied for sections 8 through 12. As it turns out, those estimates were wrong because nobody really anticipated how much it would cost to do the bridges and do the structures, the protection structures. But the notion, as I read the contract, is that in this case, there was the intention to do, somewhat detailed, as much as could be afforded to the 30% level for the preferred project. So, and I think that the goal of that is to really understand before going after the construction grants what the project might actually cost. But they're having one speaker really talked about, should we really do that kind of analysis for all the options? Because there are going to be up to 4 of them, and there certainly needs to be at least 3 of them, as far as I'm concerned. So what is your sense of how much information is going to be collected before we get to the decision on the preferred alternative?
So there's a lot of questions in there, but I'm kind of summarizing what you're saying as there's an interest in getting as much information as possible about as many alternatives as possible before making a decision what the preferred alternative is. And yes, that can be done, but we need to balance cost versus what that achieves. So anytime that you carry on multiple alternatives through through a process, that comes with additional cost, like significant additional cost. So you're trying to balance determining as early as possible what the preferred alternative is, so that you can narrow down the scope of your cost expenditures. There is in this scope the option for doing higher level work on up to 2 alternatives through environment or through task B, which is the preliminary engineering phase. So we have accounted for some of that already. And there is an option for the commission, as you've included in your action there, to the commission making the decision on what proceeds into the CEQA analysis. what we're trying to do with the current cost or the current scope of work is to, develop the preliminary engineering up to about 30%. These are, and know as much as we can at that level before getting through the CEQA analysis.
Okay, I'm just concerned, given the history with the other trail segments of the community controversy, that it's not going to surprise me, although it will disappoint me, that we're going to be faced with a similar thing here. We've heard some testimony today about options that should be eliminated or options that should be focused on. And I'm just concerned that that the staff, through working with the consultant, recognize that this is a potentially controversial process. And there needs to be significant public input, which I think is intended. But I think there may need to be, and it's up to staff to determine, some decision points where the commission would get reports. So one, we're not wasting money, but two, we are looking at things that are going to be important in ending up with some defensible cost estimates, because I think that's the real concern that as we've seen with some of the other segments, we go forward thinking that one option is preferred and then find out that we can't possibly afford to pay it. And I think that is something we really have to try to avoid in this next phase. So it's just really a suggestion in the end that perhaps as the public process develops and the consultant work develops around the different alignments, if it becomes clear that there's one or two that maybe need to fall off for one reason or another, it may be worth bringing that to commission to see whether the commission would agree to that, so that the consultant can really focus on those options that seem to be the most feasible. On the other hand, that staff doesn't make that decision and then get the commission mad at you because you got rid of an option that people really want to have further consideration. It's, given our experience, I think it's going to be a complex process to narrow down what the South County trails are really going to look like.
And that's very well described, and I think you did a very, conveyed that very well. And staff are aware of those concerns, and we do hear the community concerns and some of the echoes out there, as Commissioner Clark called them. So thank you very much for conveying that to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Hurst.
Thank you. Advancing equity should not be controversial. It should be a fundamental goal that we have. And therefore, we need to examine these alternatives. And I'm in favor of the alternatives that do not remove the rail line. And so as we move forward, I think that bringing equity to Watsonville and South County in whatever way we can is important. But I think it's also important not to cut off the future, and sometimes it might cost a little more to do something that's going to yield some more results in the future. And we should not cut off our nose to spite our face, and we should advance equity at any time we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Commissioner Serpa?
I just would like to thank Riley for the work that has already gone into this, and I really look forward to seeing the results of this study. $4 million something is a lot of money to award to an agency to help us plan the best way forward for those segments, and I am so excited this is getting started. So I just wanted to express my gratitude on behalf of my constituents and our South County. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any noes? Seeing none, no abstentions. Motion passes, so we're going to move on to number 18, which is the issuance of the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission Measure D Sales Tax Revenue Bonds. Staff report, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nisha Singh. I'm the Director of Internal Services. I'm here to present one of the exciting projects that we are taking. We are trying to bond against Measure D, highway and active transportation. So this is a slide for you to understand as to what we are borrowing and how we are borrowing those funds. Thank you. As you know, we come to commission for a 5-year plan. We come with the strategic implementation plan, and we come with cash flow model for Measure D to commission and get their approval on various factors as to where the revenue should go and how we should fund those revenues. And as you know, in 2016, we got approved for Measure D. That's the major source of revenue for RTC. Okay. So this is a little background of how we get those fundings and how we allocate those funding. Cash flow model is one of the biggest item that we go through every year. We try to analyze how much money do we have, how we get this revenue, and what all projects are we funding. And thereafter, we decide as to how to fund these projects and available cash at the year end, and try to understand our position at that particular year end. So that's a basic background of Measure D and how we get our funds and how we allocate it. Is it working? Okay, so I missed out on, okay. So this is a highway project financing need. As you can see, we have 3 phases with highway, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. If you talk about phase 1, it's almost complete. There's a minimal funding required, which we are about to pay pretty soon. When we talk about phase 2, which is Bay Porter to State Park, that is almost 65% complete. From this borrowing need, we are planning to borrow close to 50 million for highway in this fiscal year. For this borrowing needs, we're gonna have phase 2, which is 65% complete, and we're gonna fund the remaining from the borrowings. When you talk about phase 3, which is State Park to Freedom and the segment 12 for rail trail, that project is about to start in fiscal year 26-27. That's the major primary focus for bond proceeds. As you can see on the right side, we are talking about how much revenue do we receive for Measure D. As we know, we have 6.5 million that comes from Measure D every year. There is a capital expenditures that we are anticipating close to 129 million in next 5 years for phase 2 and phase 3 combined together. When you look at the maximum cash flow deficit, that's basically an assumption telling you that if we do not go for this borrowing, we're gonna have a deficit of 83.7 million. So our plan is to go for a borrowing needs of 50 million in this fiscal year, and then we are planning to go for a next borrowing of 50 million in fiscal year 28-29. With this, I'm going to show you our cash flow model for the next 5 years, which is the main concerning flow of information that let you know as to how we are planning these fundings. As you can see, the upper portion shows you without bonding. It shows you how much funds do we have at current position. At the end of fiscal year 26-27, if you want to see 5.77, can't put it. Okay, as you can see at the fiscal year 25-26, 5.7 million is what we have as a cash with us for highway. When you go forward with fiscal year 26-27, you can see there's the beginning balance, which is the carry forward from the prior year. Then you're adding the interest and you're adding all the sales tax revenue that you're getting, close to 6.7 million. And then we have the capital expenditure, which is close to 27 million that we are planning to expend in this fiscal year, which is fiscal year 26-27. This leads to an ending balance of 14 million. As you go forward, that 14 million every year with the expenditure of 35, 40, 14, 3.7 is turning almost close to 80 million by the end of fiscal year 30-31. As you know, we have already decided we're going to go for the phase 3. We have state and federal and state borrowings that we have already received. And this project will will cost us this much, almost 80 million, by the next 5 years. So that's the reason we are borrowing. So if you go for the second scenario, which is with borrowing, if you see that situation, we have on the bottom, which is a bond proceeds, we have added 50 million as the bond value. With this bond value, there comes a cost. So initially, 2 years, we are planning to just have an interest. After 2 years, we're going to add the interest and principal. That will lead to 3.5, 3.8, 3.8. And later on, it'll turn into close to 3.8 million. It'll stay at 3.8 million. This is the first borrowing that proceed that I'm talking about, which is 2026 proceed. When you talk about 2028 and 29 proceed, which we are planning to anticipate, if you see 50 million across the line from 28-29 fiscal year, we are planning to borrow close to 50 million. That 50 million will lead to initial 3 years of just interest payment of 2 million. And after that, it's going to lead to a principal and interest payment of 1.5 million. So in total, so sorry, that's wrong. That'll lead to a total of 4.2 million in the later years. So if you overall talk about the highway project and the borrowing and the needs and the cash flow, HDL has given us a projection that since we have got the Measure D, our initial revenue was close to 17 million. As you can see, currently it's close to 27.5 million. It has grown over the years. And the same projection they have used for the further years where they are anticipating a close to 3% increase over the next 30 years cumulatively. That will lead to our revenue close to 8 million, 9 million, and 10 million in the future years, which is 5 to 10 years down the lane. With that anticipation, we are, with this borrowing of initial 50 million and the next 50 million, we're going to have 100 million on total debt. And the payment would be for principal and interest would be close to 8 million in total for highway, just for highway. So that will be netting it out, your revenue, 8 million, your expenditure, net million, you're left with no funds for initial fiscal year till maybe 30-31, and then you'll try to accumulate a little bit of leftover money that you could be utilized in the future years. But that's so minimal that I wouldn't consider that as a major source of revenue. I would keep it as a contingency value for the future needs that come in for maintenance and any other projects that we have. So this is a overall highway cash flow model, which lets you know that highway is capable enough to take this borrowings. This is an anticipation based on multiple factors. If you talk about initial borrowings, it's based on 4% rate of interest, and it's based on the market condition right now. And we haven't added on the earnings that we are planning to put that unutilized funds into the market, like a secured funds into the market, and earn some sort of return on that. So that has not been added to this. The other anticipation that we have that HDL will increase 3% yearly and our revenue will go forward based on the market condition, and it has been very stable. We have close to 5 billion in sales tax revenue over in fiscal year 26-27. So this anticipation is based on that we borrow currently 50 million and then we spend 35, 40, 14, and 3.7 in the future years, which is a very, which we need to assess after a couple of years, and we see how much cash balance we have. So it's a very hypothetical situation for the next borrowing. This shows that, as I mentioned, that highway is already capped. After the second borrowing, it will be. So if you see the fiscal year 32 to 37, you see that everything is capped. The revenue is in the orange color, which is close to 8 million, and the expenditure will be close to 8 million, and then it'll be capped. And after you go close to fiscal year 2039, it keeps on dropping, and then you have a little margin of revenue in the future years. So overall, if you see the green line represent 27.5 million, which is going at a 3% rate of increase in the future years, and it's going up to close to 40 to 50 million by the end of fiscal year 46-47. With this, now I move on to the active transportation project and its financing needs. As you know, we have Coastal Rail Trade Project, which we are funding from bond proceeds. We have segment 5, segment 8 to 9, and segment 18, phase 2 to 3. These are the major projects that we are undertaking, and the borrowing needs of 20 million will help us accomplish these projects. If you see on the right side, that's the cost of next 5 years, what we require from active transportation to give it, which is close to 23.7 million. We have an expenditure of close to 57.3 million. This doesn't take into account what all state and federal grants that we have received for these projects. When you talk about the deficit, it's close to 10.5 million, and estimated borrowing needs is 20 million in this fiscal year, and then it's a big assumption that we're going to borrow in fiscal year 28-29, almost 10 millions. If you see, this is the cash flow model for active transportation for next 5 years. As you can see, our beginning balance is close to 8 million, which is our ending balance of fiscal year 26-27. That means that is the cash that we have for active transportation. It's 6 or 8, okay. That's the cash that we have as of today. When you go to fiscal year 26-27, we are anticipating that we are gonna have a revenue of 4.5 million, and we're gonna have an expenditure of 23 million. That leads to a negative balance of 10 million. That 10 million is being carried forward in the future years to anticipate how much do we actually need. So the first slide on the top, you'll see without bonding. That shows us what money do we need and how quickly do we need it. Whereas if you go to the bottom section, which tells you, okay, now with the bond proceeds, we're gonna borrow 20 million. With this 20 million, we're gonna pay the bond proceeds of 800,000 for the first issuance, which is 20 million. And going forward, when you have in fiscal year 29, we're gonna borrow again 10 million based on the deficit. And that payment will be close to 400,000. And moving forward, it will be close to, the total payment of these 30 million would be close to 2.3 million. As I said, highway doesn't have any more capacity to do any more project, whereas on the contrary, active transportation do have a high amount of capacity to function and has a remaining balance that could be utilized in future projects. This is the active transportation revenue and debt services graph, which shows green line, which is your Measure D full 27.5 million again, and then you show the orange line which shows about the active transportation allocation, which is significantly different from highway. As you see, when you talk about the expenditure and the bond proceeds, there's a lot of margin which is left, and that margin is growing over the years starting even with fiscal year 29. So we have a capacity in that end. If you talk about the series bond, okay, this basically outlines as to how we are going to borrow this. There's going to be an issue, which would be a fixed rate and tax exempt. We're going to have a credit, which will be our, we will pledge the entire Measure D fund against the borrowing. So it will not be just a one project highway or active transportation. It'll be the entire Measure D fund, which is 27.5 million, that will be borrowing. And then you talk about the rating, we're gonna go for S&P rating. As you know, RTC never had any rating for us. Since we are a small organization, our rating are anticipated to be around AA category, but let's see, we just gave the presentation and we should have those answers pretty quickly. When you talk about the structure, so we are planning to have 2 years of without principal payment. We'll just pay interest. And after 2 years, we'll try to have interest and principal. This is a very common phenomena where you have the major projects and you're trying to fund those projects in the initial years. And in the later years, you add the principal as well as the interest. Whereas when you talk about the sale, we'll take it into the competitive market. Since our rating will be higher and we have a good reputation, it's better for us to take it in the open market, have everyone come and bid for these bonds, and we'll take the lowest bidder. When you talk about the source and uses, this basically outlines how much is our actual borrowing, and how much is the additional premium that we need to pay, how much is the payments that we're going to have, like 620,000 is our cost of issuance, which is anticipated. Major cost of issuance is like the commission underwriter fees that goes almost close to 0.75. So it could vary. That's the reason we have asked commission to go up to 75 million. We have asked in our resolution that we should borrow up to 75 million. Basically, the reason is this, so that if we have a bidder who comes and says, oh, I'm going to have 72.5 as your par value, and after that, we're going to give you a discount. So your net value would be same as 70 million after deducting all the cost of issuance. So that's the only reason that we don't have to come back to the commission. The second reason is there is always borrowings in the denomination of 5,000 as per our financial consultant KNN. So that's the reason we have asked commission to go up to 75. We're just going to borrow 70, and 75 is just a cushion margin that we have kept so that in case there's a variance, we can actually proceed with the issuance. This shows as to how we are going to borrow. So initially what happens is currently we get the CDTFA money. It goes directly to county and county pays us, county gives us the receipt. Whereas when the bonds proceed will come into the picture, there'll be a mediator. There'll be a US bank as a trustee who will come in play, who will take all the Measure D money, take all the bonds proceeds with, and keep aside the bond proceed, the principal and the interest from 27.5 million and allocate the rest to us. And based on that remaining allocation, we are not going to touch any direct allocation for city, county, and everyone. They'll be paid full. It'll be just our highway and active transportation category, which will receive less revenue. So this overall defines as to that we are hedging the entire funds and how will the flow of money come into play. These are the documents that I've added into staff report for approval, like security legal resolutions. There is amendment and restate agreement for CDTFA to give the money directly to our US bank as a trustee. And then we have a master indenture, which is between us and the US bank, and first supplemental indenture, that's the same document. Whereas if you see, the other documents are like notice inviting bids for people to come and bid for our bonds, then notice to intend to sell, and the purchase agreement, bond purchase agreement. These are the basic documents that has been given by the bond council to us to proceed with this borrowing. Whereas if you see the last one, which is the debt management policy, it's always a mandatory requirement for us to go for this policy so that we are rated better and we had a debt policy in case there's a conflict of interest at the later point of time. So that's a debt policy that's been provided along with the resolution and the other documents that we have. This is basically the timeline that defines as to how we're going to go about it. We have already gone with meeting with S&P. We are here today to get your approval for series of bond. And we have, so furthermore, we'll price our bonds in the market and we'll have a closing series on that date. And by that date, we should have our funds available for the major projects. So with this, I would like to recommend that we approve the resolution for borrowing up to 75 million. Authorizing executive directors to take all the necessary steps and take all the signatures and get funding approved. And then lastly, to adopt a debt management policy, which will help us facilitate the process. If you have any questions, I'm here. I have the team, KNN, and other bond counsel to give all the answers. Thank you.
Commissioner Keeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you for that presentation. I thought it was quite good. To be certain about this, this is as I understand it, my experience would tell me this, that it's fairly common to have a revenue source that's predictable and extends over a considerable period of time. Not 100% predictable, but pretty predictable. And it seems to me that what pushes against that is the uneven pattern of expenditures over time. So voters adopt Measure D, they say we want these things done. Commission says, all right, we're going to undertake these things, and we have this dedicated revenue source. So the borrowing seems to me, from a policy point of view, to be a very good thing, provided there's a couple of sideboards around it. One is we're not pledging 100% of every revenue that's coming in, but we are pledging a significant portion of future revenue for projects that the voters said are contained in Measure D, and we want those things done. The borrowing, the interest rate that we'll be paying, somewhere in that 4% range, depending upon what the street says the moment we go out to sell the bond. But assuming that it's in that range, I think we're pretty sure that the cost of projects, labor and materials, are going up significantly faster than 4% a year that we would be paying on the interest for borrowing against a revenue we can relatively predict. So if that's the architecture of the deal, it seems to me that it makes good sense to borrow money today and make the investments and pay it back with cheaper dollars in the future. so that we can get project delivery as close to on time as we can. Is that the basic structure of this deal?
Yes. So mostly agencies either go pay as we go or they borrow so that they can expedite the project and get all the fundings in one go, and then they can speed up the project and reduce the cost of inflation that might be coming in the future years. So as you delay, the cost of doing that project is significantly higher. So as today, the labor cost and all those, as you said, you're absolutely right. So either you do pay as you go or you take the borrowings and expedite the project to up to the completion. And then, yes, you're absolutely correct with this.
Okay, thank you. One other question, Mr. Chairman, thank you. One other question, and that is the pledged revenue is only, not that it's insignificant, but there's a box around what our liability is in terms of we're borrowing this money, we're pledging this revenue, not any other revenue, any other colored dollars that come in to the RTC, it's this revenue. Is that right?
No, that's not the right statement. We are pledging complete 27.5 million. In case highway doesn't have a capacity to pay it back or active doesn't have a capacity in the future to pay it back, US Bank will directly take the money upfront. They don't, and then after that, how we allocate, we'll come back to commission. If there is a extreme situation, but it hasn't, I think our sales tax has been very consistent over the years, and HDL has done a great job in predicting the market and estimating the various factors as to what will come back as a revenue. So
what recourse would a bondholder have if we are pledging Measure D revenues and a bondholder believes that they aren't going to get repaid or they're not out of that source? What's their recourse? They can dig deeper into our resources?
Nisha, we may, Brian,
I'll
right
have John.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian Forbath from Stradlin Yaka, RTC's bond counsel. Great to be here with you this morning. It's a great question. So these bonds are payable solely from Measure D revenues. There's no other obligation of the commission or any other funds, but it's a gross pledge of Measure D revenues, comes from CDTFA, gets deposited in with the trustee. There's a flow of buckets as the money comes out. You pay, interest and principal, and then it gets released from the pledge, goes back to RTC, and then gets dispersed to the various buckets that you all have established.
So I'm going to stay there for just a second, if you could. Thank you, my friend. So let's say that we go ahead with this borrowing, we issue the bond, we're undertaking the projects, and for whatever reason, the world goes into an absolutely fantastic, global financial crisis. We won't be the only ones with a problem in that event, but assuming that for a second, and our revenue drops significantly as a result of that, and we have a bond payment that is coming due, and our sales tax, that portion of our sales tax that's Measure D, is not sufficient to cover that. We're not going to default on a bond. So we have to cure that problem, because if we default, if any public agency defaults on a bond, they're not going to sell another bond, or they will, but the price will be ridiculous. So I don't imagine any of that is going to happen. Don't imagine any of that is going to happen to the point where we are on the edge of a default. But in the event that those circumstances unfold, because that's always what you do when you're borrowing, it's like, what is the extent and what is my protection against going against other assets if I default?
So the bond investors have no ability to go against other assets of RTC, consider your equipment and your assets, your bank accounts or anything. The only pledge and lien they have is on the Measure D sales tax revenues. And if the commission or whoever, other bodies, members of the commission, decide out of their own generosity or whatever that they want to solve this on their own, that's not an obligation of anybody to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, that leads me to believe still that this is bread and butter kind of borrowing that is done by public agencies all the time. We know what this agency is about, what we're supposed to do under Measure D, what the basic big three buckets are that we're using. to fund those activities that the voters approved. So I think this, I know we're going to get further input and so on, but I think this is, there's nothing exotic about this at all. It's what public agencies do to make sure you get your projects done on time and on budget. And if you can forecast what your cost increases are going to be and your borrowing costs, and there's a delta between them, go ahead and do it, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and thank you for that, explanation coming from a former treasurer of the county. Commissioner Schifrin. Oh.
Yeah, just to, I'm sorry, Commissioner Schifrin.
Go ahead.
I'll be quick. First of all, let me just say, wow. You have such a grasp on this. I really hope that a spaceship doesn't land and take you away somewhere, because your grasp on this is really very good, very solid, like none other I've seen. Also, too, if they want to come after the commission for any of this data, I have a left-handed bowling ball they're welcome to have. So, but onto my question here, and it's just to kind of dovetail on Commissioner Keeley's question. Let's say that there is said financial crisis and interest rates swing wildly one direction or another in the course of this. Does that have an effect? And if so, what effect would that have?
The obligations that are being issued are fixed rate obligations. So the interest rate that the commission is going to pay on its bonds will be fixed at the date of pricing and when we close the bonds. And if there's an event of default, there's no right of acceleration of bond owners. The bond owners just continue to get paid as revenues would come in, if that answers your question.
And well, and let me just one quick follow-up. In the event interest rates fall, would that be a situation where we'd be able to leverage that at all?
So the bonds are going to be structured with a 10-year optional redemption provision, which Mrs. Schick can talk about in more detail. But so there will be opportunities in the future to refund these bonds for potential savings if the markets cooperate. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Commission. Melissa Schick with K&N Public Finance, and I've been working closely with staff and bond counsel on your transaction. To address the question with regard to declining revenues and the repayment of debt, I just want to draw your attention back to the graphs that Nisha showed with you, and to remember that we're pledging all of Measure D revenues, but we're sizing the bonds only within the highway and active transportation programs. So we're not leveraging the full extent of the revenue stream. And that's really important because then we have an embedded debt service coverage, meaning we're not borrowing all of Measure D. We're only borrowing within the program areas where the bond proceeds are advancing projects. And that's really important. So for the current transaction, we expect that total Measure D revenues will be 5 times the debt service due on the bonds. If we take into account the second borrowing that Nisha walked you through, we estimate that total Measure D revenues will be over 2.5 times the total debt service on the 2 bond transactions. So that's a really important feature with your borrowing and the way your expenditure plan is set up. And the rating agencies love that, right? Like they love to see that embedded coverage and know that actually you can't borrow all of Measure D because you have obligations to the neighborhood programs and other programs within your expenditure plan.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Commissioner Schifrin.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Lots of numbers coming by fairly fast. I do have a few questions. I want to sort of approach the questions that Commissioner Keeley raised and responded to in a slightly different way. I think sort of worst case that if there's really a sharp reduction in sales tax, because the bond debt service is such a low percentage of the current total Measure D money, the likelihood that there would be any default is pretty impossible. However, if there is a significant, the point I think is the case, if in fact Measure D revenues decline, the debt service will be paid off the top. We're assuming, and the whole bond process is based on the assumption that there will be sufficient money in the highway fund and in the active transportation fund to pay the debt service and not affect any of the other categories, correct? Correct. But it's important, I think, to recognize if there is a significant decline in overall sales tax revenue, it is possible that the amount of revenue going to highways and transportation would not be sufficient. And that would mean, at least in the short term, a reduction in the amount of money going to the other categories. Now, we could consider that alone, but I think it's important to recognize in that kind of worst case situation that it's not measured, because the bondholders are gonna get paid no matter what. It's just whether anybody else is going to get paid is what is the question. So is that kind of the correct understanding?
So in case there's a worse scenario, we'll come back to commission and we'll give the different opportunities and options to choose from, that either you can take active transportation for the shorter period of time, like a small loan, or you can go with the rail or any other categories, and we'll present those scenarios in case such a situation occurs. But even if you see with COVID, which was like a huge pandemic, and our revenue didn't significantly go lower. So if the whole economy goes down, then we're gonna come back again to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
My real questions have to do with what we're talking about here is money and how to get more money. And it's all based on the fact that we're gonna need the money. And I think that it might be helpful for the commission and the public to have a better understanding about why we need the money. As I understand it, for the highway project, we really need the money, in the $100 million overall, the $50 million in the short term, to complete the project that's under construction now from Bay to State Park. But more importantly, to pay the local share of the project from State Park, from State Park to Freedom?
Freedom to State Park.
Freedom to State Park. So those are projects that have been through the process. The EIRs have been done. We've got very, very significant outside grants that are paying for a huge portion, the major portion of those projects. But there's a gap. And the Measure D revenues on an annual basis are not sufficient to close that gap. So that's why we need to borrow for the highway fund. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's absolutely correct. We have other state and federal revenue coming in, and our share, because we have to pre-fund everything from our own money, that's the reason, that's the local share that we have. We're going to pre-fund everything, and we're going to submit our reimbursement to federal and state. So that's the reason we require all these funds together with us, so we can do those transactions and get the refund.
So the highway fund is pretty clear to me because we're only talking about 2 projects.
Sure.
But so let's talk about the active transportation and why we need the bonding for the active transportation.
Okay.
Is some of it going to be potentially needed for 8 through 12? And to what extent are we really building the capacity to do 13 through 20? Because my understanding was if we're fortunate, the cost of doing 8 through 12 will be in the grants. But what we're really going to need money for in the future, and what's not sufficient in the active transportation fund, is for the South County Trail. Is that a correct understanding about why we're going to need to do bonding for active transportation?
I can call upon Grace to answer that question, but I do have some slides which can reflect as to how much we are borrowing and how much grants do we have for active.
Good morning, Commissioners. Grace, please leave your step. Sarah, it looked like you might want to respond, so I wanted to give you a chance first.
I was going to give a 10,000-foot view of just a history. I know that you're aware of the history of the decision to bond and the decision to borrow was made before we applied for these large grants that we've since received, luckily. But I want to just point and give perspective to, in 2020, we prepared a strategic implementation plan for Measure D that outlined kind of our strategy around this. And the commission at that time, shortly after the strategic implementation plan was prepared, they accepted this approach to borrow because it is a smart thing to do to bring money forward so that our community can experience the transportation improvements sooner, right? If we just go off of pay-as-you-go revenue, it's, those projects we're gonna get less project, right? So part of this is about stretching our dollar. But as part of the strategic implementation plan, we have our cash flow model that is based on expenditures program-wide. So every dollar that we have programmed, this commission has programmed, is year over year, like those are the amounts that we're assuming we need to fund, right? So if we've programmed funds to North Coast Segment 5, yes, that's included in, it's like an overall program expenditure need. So basically we're running out of cash in the program based on the programming that this commission has already approved. But with that, if you want to add more detail,
I think that was a great overview, but to answer part of your question is yes, we expect that the existing program fundings, when you combine the state potential federal funding and the local Measure D funding, will cover the interim trail cost as currently estimated. You brought up an item, a question in the earlier item about cost estimates at early kind of design when you were speaking with Riley. So right now the interim trail design is around 30%. So we still have a lot to learn. We've tried to keep up with escalation rate costs and estimates as well as unit cost estimates. We'll have updated cost estimates going forward. So the cash flow model that you saw presented by Nisha does assume that the interim trail can be constructed within segments 9 through 12 with the existing, 9 through 11 with the existing programmed funding.
Let me follow up on that because I think I tend to not like bonding because it has interest payments, and it means we're paying now, but we're paying for a long time. I can support it when we really need the money, and I can see for the highway project that we really need the money as projected. It isn't quite as clear to me why we need the money for the trail. My understanding was, and I think it's important to let people know, we're borrowing because we want to do the projects and we can't do the projects if we don't borrow. And I think that's true for the highway projects. And I think it's probably true for the trail project once we go beyond segments 8 through 12. At least that's my understanding of it. So as we move forward with 13 through 20, as I've been thinking about it, it's less clear to me why we need a bond for $10 million in 26, 27 when there isn't really a need for it in terms of funding any project, or at least it doesn't appear to be a need for it. And so sort of correct me on that. I want to bond when we need to bond, but I don't think we should bond unless we need to bond. And things tend to take longer than you think they're going to take, as we will know. So, not having a bunch of money sitting in the bank that we're paying interest on, that we're not using is, not necessarily the best way forward. So help me with understanding why we need the active transportation bond in 26, 27.
Okay, I think it really alludes to what Sarah was saying, is that we don't have the pay-as-you-go funds to advance the projects right now. And we want to stick to the schedule that we have for delivery of segments 9 through 11, or 8 through 11. And we do not have sufficient funds on a pay-as-you-go basis to do that. So really, the earlier bonding is to be able to construct those projects. For future projects in South County, we don't have cost estimates for the construction of those projects. We would need to return to the commission once we do get to that phase. You know, Riley presented on developing the pre-construction phase and the environmental phase, and that will inform the cost of the construction of those projects in the future. So to try to answer your question most simply, we do not have the pay-as-you-go capacity in these early years to advance the projects 9 through 11, and that's why we are pursuing bonding.
So that seems to contradict the notion that the grants are going to cover the cost. Is it a reimbursement problem that we're having, that what we need to do is spend the money up front and then they'll be reimbursed out of the bonds? Is that why we need, I mean, if the bonds are going to, I mean, if the grants are going to cover the cost of the project, then theoretically we shouldn't need to bond. But if we're not going to get the grants until we've essentially paid for much of the project, then I can understand why we would need to bond. So we will be reimbursed for it, which will help us down the road, but we need a bond because we don't have enough money in the account to pay for the construction as it happens until we get reimbursed. Is that really what's going on?
No. So I think a key piece of what I maybe didn't make clear is that the funding, the funding for the trail projects is a combination. It is the state funding, the grants that we received, as well as the previously programmed Measure D funding that we are advancing into earlier years to complete the construction. So it's a combination of that funding.
So our commitment to the local share of 8 through 12 is based on the funds we don't have, essentially. Funds that we're expecting to get.
Not on a pay-as-you-go basis.
Right. So they're not available now. Our expectation is they will be available over the next several years, and the bond will cover it during that period. So it's essentially paying for the local share until we get the Measure D funding that will cover the local share.
And I know Sarah had alluded to this, and we talked about this earlier, but it is very real, the escalation rates that we're facing, and bonding can be an uncomfortable conversation, and debt service can be an uncomfortable conversation when you're talking about public funds. But really the strategy is to try to get ahead of that escalation. We are facing serious cost increases every month, not just yearly on the escalation rate. So we can't predict the future, but that's a serious part of our conversation we have as staff in coming to you with this recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to make clear why they were needed, how the public is going to benefit, how these projects are going to benefit by having the bonding. And I think you've made that clear. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Downey.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was very thorough and easy to understand. I think back to 2016 when we passed Measure D, especially that component of the trail. And I'd like to know, since we've been talking like up through segment 12 for these projects, where does that leave 13 through 20 in this scenario with bonding?
I could take a stab at that. So as Nisha's presentation showed, we're kind of tapping out the highway program, but we may have some capacity in future years in the active transportation program. So we, as staff, were aware of, thinking about the future and the delivery strategy of the South County Trail projects. It's going to be really important to try to preserve some additional, revenues, so we have some left over, so that we could then use Measure D funds, maybe future, when we're going for grants, we're gonna need to commit Measure D as our local match, and hopefully among other funds that, maybe other agencies wanna also chip in on these important projects, but really we wanna replicate the success that we've had for the North County in the South County. And so that's really our intent, looking, 5 years down the road. But the first things first is get the project started, which is Riley's presentation, which was fantastic. And then secondly, we have to manage our funds very diligently so that we have enough money left to pledge a local match for future very large grants that we hope to obtain to build these amazing improvements for South County.
And I just wanted to clarify, does this Measure D sundown in 2047? Does it?
Yes, it's a 30-year measure, and 2047 is when it sunsets.
And the current projects that we were just describing, when do we hope for their completion if this bonding is successful?
For the highway program, it's probably around 2031 would be the completion of the improvements to the Phase 3 project. And then for the coastal rail trail projects, there's several of them, so I'll defer to Grace on that.
For the segments we've been talking about today related to the bonding segments 8 through 11, we're looking at a completion date of around 2030.
Okay.
Start construction in 2027 is our current schedule.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll go out to the public. We're in this item of the agenda. Anybody in chambers?
Hi, I'm Brett Garrett. I want to make sure you have read the comments from Linda Wilchison, former executive director of RTC from 1985 to 2005. This is the attachment for item 18 on the website. I'll just try to read her number 14 to summarize. I'll read as much as I can. The RTC staff report is proposing to mortgage future Measure D revenues so that Caltrans can initiate construction of a Highway 1 widening project that was not included in the 2016 Measure D approved by voters, and for which a current estimated total project cost and sequencing has not been made public, that after years of construction will offer no traffic relief to Highway 1 drivers in the short term or long term, and that will severely limit local Measure D funds for other possible Highway 1 corridor operational improvements, interchange projects, traffic management, and related projects. Please make sure you read this. It's longer than what I read, but it's from a former executive director of the RTC, and it's very important. Please read it.
Thank you.
Hello again. Well, I'm sure you've all memorized the 2019 EIR. In case you haven't, let me remind you a couple of statistics there. They're predicting a traffic speed increase of 4 miles an hour from 26 to 30 miles an hour. There's no guarantee how long that's going to last. We all know about induced demand. The question is, is this a permanent construction project? Because as soon as we get the 3 lanes done, it's a mess up at the Fish Hook, $127 million. It's worse than it's ever been. So then there's the next move, say, okay, let's start building 4 lanes. I came from Los Angeles when they built the 14-lane Santa Monica Freeway. Within 10 years, it was a parking lot at rush hour. I mean, I think you folks are earnest in trying to do something here that'll help, but this is proven not to be the way to go. This phase is obviously on its way, although I think borrowing is sort of irresponsible when it's not really necessary.
Thank you.
So I think take a better look, please.
Hi, Mark Lee from Santa Cruz County. I'd like to encourage you to look at the economics of what you're about to pass. You're putting the county into extreme debt service here. In 2024, the project environmental review included that this segment 12 would only increase traffic by 4 miles per hour. Think about that. You're spending $70 to $90 million. Only out of the 260,000 people that are living here in the county, 50% of the people only work full-time. The rest of us are working part-time or on low-income salaries. Think about the debt service that you're putting the future generations into. Furthermore, this, in the EIR section that you paid for your consultant, under the EIR in 2019, 2.51.16, the EIR indicated that there was discernible, negligible improvement. You're spending $90 million to gain 4 miles per hour gain from Park, segment 9. Please do not pass this authorization. It's a waste of taxpayers' money.
Thank you, sir.
Debbie Bulger. I urge you not to issue millions in bonds with the lion's share going towards widening Highway 1 from State Park to Freedom. Measure D did not address this section of Highway 1. Widening State Park Drive to Freedom was not approved by the voters. The EIR, as has been said, predicts insignificant congestion relief. Taxpayers cannot afford this enormous expenditure. Anyone paying attention to the national news of extreme weather exacerbated by climate change knows we must invest in reducing carbon emissions. Measure D money should be used for road repair, neighborhood safety projects, transit, and active transportation, not for widening the highway that we did not vote for.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in chambers, anybody over?
You do not have any speakers.
All right, I'll bring it back to the commission for direction.
Move the item.
Second. So it's been moved in second. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any noes? No? So that motion passes, so thank you. With that, we're gonna go on to, if I can get back in my place. Review of the items to be discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 items for closed session today. The first 2 items are public employee performance evaluation and labor negotiations related to the executive director. And then the remaining 2 items are conference with legal counsel, both under anticipated litigation. And with that, we are ready for closed session.
Do we expect any report note?
I do not anticipate any reportable action today.
All right. Well, thank you. With that, any public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Grace, I'm now speaking as a member of public on my own time. Item on the closed session. The RTC has proposed key decisions to maintain significant grants during the almost 2-year period that Director Christensen has been the director. It's also made careful decisions about cost increases on Highway 1 projects, all focused on multimodal mobility. Sarah has provided clarity to the RTC on the landscape for the project delivery and how that works for Highway 1 and Coastal Rail Trail and state grants. We've observed that as the director and with the support by RTC, we have become a more transparent agency, and we've also been able to receive the feedback of the public and advance equity goals. Where staff needs support is to create a positive work environment that encourages multidisciplinary decision-making and support for an environment that retains staff and is fiscally responsible with staff resources. We've been known as an agency that's lean and very effective, and we want to continue to serve in that capacity. This will, any kind of work conditions that are difficult create distractions, reduces staff's energy, and takes away from the focus of our goals. I hope you can ask important questions to help RTC get there. Core staff are the folks who are putting their names on their staff reports and developing the work to you, providing the analysis and making recommendations that receive review by your director. We appreciate your attention to supporting our staff and continuing to be committed to the public through the RTC.
Thank you. With that, any other comments? Any public comment? Do you see anybody? No, over Zoom?
You have no speakers.
All right, with that, I'm closing up, so until the next meeting. Thank you.